Hey everyone, Michael here with hellocupcakeitsme. Today is June 22nd, 2022, and how are you? So if you haven't done so already, please hit like and subscribe and head on over to the blog hellocupcakeitsme.com and check out content that I don't post anywhere else, and head on over to the podcast for a great show. That's anchor.fm/hellocupcakeitsme. And shall we get into it? So, last night having been Tuesday, that means that I went and played trivia. And last night we kicked butt and we are first place bronze division. So, if we win next week's game, then I believe that is the end of the season and the beginning of the new season. We should go into the silver division. So I'm really hoping and praying and keeping my fingers crossed that we can continue kicking butt. There's been probably a good 12 or 15, like 12 to 15 new bars that have joined the leagues. And then there's this one bar that just freaking mops the floor every single week. It's like to the point where we believe that they're using like their phones or whatever to, or like Google or something to look up these answers. But, yeah, just really fun and really amazing. Last night things got a little haywire again. I set off to the side by myself with another friend of mine who is kind of quiet also. And we were just like kicking ass. And everyone's like, what the hell? And literally we could not hear them because there was a big speaker like right above us. And so they would yell out the answers and we wouldn't hear them. And they were getting mad because they were being loud and we were trying to like tell them the answers or whatever. And so we've got to come together more cohesively and try to figure this shit out, because it's just not a good thing the way that we are carrying on and managing, especially if we ever want to get one of the trophies. So and then also last night I was given an apartment size refrigerator, one of the like taller ones, kind of like what you would see in a hotel or something like that. I already have like one of the really small refrigerators that's like 1 cubic foot or whatever, just barely enough for a gallon of milk and maybe some cheese, and that's about it, with like a little tiny freezer on it. So this one I think is 3.5 cubic feet with a 1.5 cubic foot freezer or something like that. The freezer aspect of it is nice. It's not needed because I already have like a tall stand-up freezer, but I was really excited to get this refrigerator because I've been needing one and wanting one for a while now, because my my regular everyday refrigerator, it went out, and I just haven't had the money to replace it and get it hauled off and all that other stuff. And I know that if I told my landlord about it, he would probably come in and change it out or whatever, but I just feel like it's my responsibility, so I haven't told him about it, and don't plan on telling him about it until I have the money to replace it, just like I went out and replaced the washer and the dryer on my own. Well, not on my own. My sister picked them up for me. I don't know how much she paid for them, if she paid anything for them or whatever, but I just got a knock on the door one day and it was her and her boyfriend, and she said, I got you a washer and dryer. So, just as soon as I can, I'm going to change out my main refrigerator and call it good. But until then, I have a small efficiency refrigerator. and I'm really, really excited about that because in my smaller refrigerator, all I used to use it for was like storing my insulin and stuff like that. And then when my big refrigerator went out, I started putting like a couple of packages of cheese and like bacon and a gallon of milk, or not even a gallon, it was like a half gallon of milk is all that can really fit in there. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. I'm like, yay, I can buy butter and stuff like that again and be able to put eggs in the refrigerator and not have to worry about like stacking it like Jenga. Um, so I know it's the stupid dorky things in life that make me happy. And if I ever have to move from here and like move into a tiny house, then I already have tiny house appliances because I still have my portable washer and dryer, and now I have two tiny refrigerators, and I have my Instapot, and then I have my two air fryers. I actually have two Instapots and two air fryers, and I have a couple of crock pots, but I'm going to get rid of the crock pots because my Instapots do the same thing. The next room in my house that I'm going to like focus a majority of my like energy is going to be getting my kitchen back up and running in, just doing a deep, thorough clean of it and the dining room so that I have that space to work in again. So yeah, really kind of excited and happy about that. Also, I have been taking a lot of classes lately, and in the last week and a half, I've taken 3 classes and have completed all 3 of them. One of them was on counseling youth, well, mainly just counseling people who self-harm, and how to talk to them and how to just give them advice and giving them a space to talk where they're not judged or they're not where they're not feeling like they have to defend themselves. And then I took another course on animal welfare, and it revolved around domestic abuse, domestic abuse and violence in the home and mental illness, and how those typically can translate into animal abuse. And that was a really difficult class for me to get through at first because I wasn't really sure like if they were going to show graphic images of like the animals being hurt or what have you. And I grew up in a very dysfunctional household. My dad and my biological mother used to fight all the goddamn time. Both of them were addicts. Biological mom still is an addict, but they would always fight about things, and she was a horrible nitpicking type of a person, and I can't ever recall it getting physically violent, but it was violent in the fact that my dad had, that loud booming dad voice, and he would yell and scream and like break things and stuff like that. And rightly so, because he would be out in 125-degree weather, if not hotter, all day long, digging ditches, laying pipes, working construction, to come home to my mom having not done any dishes, not cooked any food, not washed any clothes, and her just sitting on the couch watching TV, smoking cigarettes all day long, and then get pissed off at him for getting pissed off at her. And then she would intentionally gaslight him on things. And so it was just a toxic relationship, and how those two lasted 17 years is way beyond me. But I don't fault either one of them for the environment that I was brought up in, because they were, like I said, both were using, and it just was, it is what it is. I have less hostility and animosity toward my father than I ever did and do my biological mom. So, enough about that, because I don't want to unhatch that anymore. But, so, yeah, those couple of classes that I've taken have just been really fun, really awesome, really eye-opening. And, I've gotten to print out a couple of my certificates. What was the other one? Violence in the Home, Understanding Young Minds. There's one more that I need to print out that apparently didn't get printed out. So, I take classes where you get your, get a certificate of completion, or like a diploma, or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the class, and, put it in my Hall of Records over there by the, stop sign. Because in the, like, mental health world, and some of those, like, jobs relating to stuff like that, where you have to take online courses and things like that, employers want to see the certificates that you've done. And I like having the certificates because it's a record of, like, this is the class I've taken, this is what I understand, this is what I know. And it makes me feel accomplished, and it's 100% following the dopamine. It really is. Like, whenever I get really kind of upset, I just stand in the hallway and I look and I see all the different classes that I've taken, and I'll sometimes just take a moment to stand there and look at, like, each and every certificate that I have framed, and just meditate on what that class was and what I learned, and, like, kind of see where I was in thought and where I was in my personal growth and development. And it really helps me. It really, really helps me. So I'm planning on I have 3 or 4 more classes lined up that I'm planning on taking, and then I don't know if I'm going to continue through the summer taking courses as I can come across them, or if I'm just going to do these 2 or 3 and then call it good, because they are a bit time consuming, and it's fine. I'm enjoying taking the class, I'm enjoying learning and reinforcing what I've learned, and just gaining the knowledge and keeping those neurological pathways open and working. And like I said, 100% chasing the dopamine. It's feeling good right now, so I'm following the dopamine. But yeah. What else is going on? Oh yeah, I've been working on the special look series for the LGBT community since June. It's Pride Month, and there's one video that I'm having an extremely hard time putting together, because it was such a huge pivotal moment for the American LGBT movement that I want to be able to do right by it. And it was the Stonewall riots, and I think what I'm going to do is just kind of like go over it briefly in this video, and then I may create a video about it. But the Stonewall riots was this huge pivotal moment in our LGBTQ history that a lot of people don't know about. And it's really not talked about in schools, even though it was like, it very well could be taught as a social studies, social event type of a situation, because of how it affected the gay community and the straight community in whole, and how it was also like a moment where the law of the land did not match the wants and the needs of the people, and how a small rebellion caused a great like change. So in the 1960s, 1970s, and even going from the 70s into the 80s, the LGBT community kind of had this revelation and an explosion of coming onto the scene, and people, coming out of the closet or what have you. And so, in doing so, it was being met with more and more opposition, and it was illegal for gay bars to operate. And in the 60s and 70s, and most bars, especially in the New York, Brooklyn, whatever area, were mob owned and operated. And kind of like a speakeasy or whatever, bars were being operated under the guise of a bottle club or a dance club that was kind of a safe space for gays and lesbians to get together and hang out. And they had like a special lighting system, so like if all the house lights went on and it was a white light, that meant that cops were nearby to get into positions where it looked like you were just standing around socializing, and not actually dancing and making out with somebody of the same sex. And this is way before Studio 54 and that whole revolution. But these bars were a safe haven. And so one night, a couple of cops went in undercover, and they saw what they needed to see. There was men dancing and having relations with other men, same with women or whatever. And in most of these bars, there was a back room where you could be physically intimate with one another. And so these cops kind of like checked everything out, and then they went back outside and reported to another group, and they ended up raiding the police ended up raiding the bar. And so at first everything was kind of like really quiet and really like subdued, but it became more and more and more charged with energy, and just people like saying, you know what, enough is enough. Fuck you. We don't care if you're a cop or whatever. You're not going to detain us. You're not going to treat us like we are subhuman, second-class citizens or whatever. And they started fighting back. And during this whole time, it took like 2 or 3 days of just fighting and rioting, and the cops would come in during the day, and then they would fight with everyone, and then it would kind of like die off at night, and everyone would kind of lick their wounds, recollect or whatever, and then they would go back at it. And then during that time period where everything was kind of calm and quiet, legislation was trying to be passed quickly, and there were flyers and all this stuff that was being distributed throughout the whole of the city, just trying to get people to come together and help and to make a stance. And so the conclusion of this kind of all culminated around like a general ceasefire, and it was then that a lot of prominent people who were once thought to be straight or whatever came forward and said, you know what, we're passing this legislation, we're passing these bills, you cannot do this. The only time you're allowed to raid a club is if there's probable cause for narcotics or other illegal going-ons, but this is it, you know, case closed type of a situation. So it was a huge, huge, like, milestone for the LGBTQ community, because this is the first time that a group of people stood up for their rights. I mean, not the first time. I mean, you had the civil rights movement and the women's suffrage and all that other stuff, but this was the first time that a fringe group like the LGBTQ community stood up and said enough is enough and demanded rights and demanded respect. Now, of course, it wasn't until like the early 2000s that we actually started seeing a lot more equality for the LGBT community, like being able to marry and adopt and so on and so forth. But there were a lot of great, like, foundational movements that were put in place and kind of set in stone because of Stonewall. And so, even though I just kind of articulated it right now, there's so much more about that event, and I'm gonna put a link to the wiki page in the notes down below, and I please I urge you to go and read it and check it out. There's so much amazing information. Even if you're not a member of the LGBTQ community, if you like anything to do with history or like political science, stuff like that, check it out, because it is amazing and it was really revolutionary. So yeah, outside of that, I think that's going to be a good place for me to stop for today. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, put them in the comment section down below. If you have an LGBTQ history moment or a person that you would like for me to talk about, please hit me up, let me know. You can put it in the comment section down below, put it over in the community tab, or shoot me an email, hellocupcakeitsme@gmail.com. Make sure you go check out the blog, hellocupcakeitsme.com, and go check out the podcast, anchor.fm/hellocupcakeitsme. And until next time, I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.